And here we are, the First Point USA College Rugby webinar. Rory, first time I've done this. First time you've done this. Welcome. Where are you at the moment, mate?
Thanks very much, Ryan. Yeah, so I'm in UCLA, just like literally 5 minutes outside UCLA, and thankfully the weather's pretty good today. We're looking at 27 degrees, so pretty lucky this late in November to be having such good weather.
What's the time over there? Sorry.
It's about 12 o'clock here, midday.
Oh, so you're in the afternoon. It's 8 o'clock. I'd say we're in Glasgow. It's probably 6 degrees here. So you're not missing the weather, and you're not far from here, are you? When you grew up around this area, in the UK, Ballymena.
Yeah, I'm from Ballymena in Northern Ireland there, and went to school, Ballymena Academy, played the minis in Ballymena Rugby Club. So yeah, pretty local in the UK.
Yeah, an ex-teammate of mine, Tommy Seymour, British and Irish Lion, also from Ballymena. You haven't lost the Northern Irish accent, though. That's still there, still strong. Although I'm pretty sure earlier I picked up a bit of an American twang.
Yeah, so yeah, I still have the accent, but I definitely have a lot of American mannerisms and words now, shall we say.
Oh, good man. I suppose let's start by talking about your rugby journey before UCLA. Where did you started out at Ballymena, and then how did you progress through the ranks with rugby?
Yeah, so cool. So yeah, I went to Ballymena Minis, then Ballymena Academy was my secondary school, and then that was pretty high level rugby there in Northern Ireland for the Schools Cup, and then for university I went down south to University College Dublin, played there for 3 years, and was lucky enough to be in a really formidable program there. Um, in the under 20 specifically, there's a number of the players I played alongside. So, for example, my other second row was Cian Prendergast, and obviously he's already played for Ireland. And there was a number of players that went on and got pro contracts with Leinster, with Connacht. So it was a really strong program there. And for my senior, so 3 years there, COVID kind of interrupted that third year. So for my fourth year, I then actually transferred and went to UCLA for a year, and that's what brought me over to the States.
And so over to UCLA, straight into, I'm guessing there was obviously, was it a scholarship? What was it that you took you over there, though?
Yeah, so it wasn't a scholarship. It was just that, like, you can transfer. So a lot of American universities you can transfer between, and there's like various forms. So scholarships you can have exchange programs, you can do a junior transfer. There's lots of different mechanisms in America.
Oh, okay. Oh, pretty interesting. And in terms of the rugby over there, then, how did you find it going from what you were playing, obviously, in Ireland and then moving over there? How did you find the adjustment in rugby? How is it different? What was the standard like when you got over there?
Yeah, super. So, what I would say first off is that a lot of times people think, "Oh, Americans are just like rubbish," but that's not actually the case. So in UCLA, for example, like half the team is actually foreigners, and then the other half they're like unbelievable athletes. So if you see like the American, like the physique of some of these guys, they actually blow blow us out of the water. And don't get me wrong, one of the bigger advantages you have as a foreign player is that the rugby IQ. But the American athletes, they're very committed, and they do train a lot, and they do have rugby from high school as well. So when you're playing at the top level of rugby in America and college rugby, it is a good standard. It is a good standard.
And what about the transition from Northern Ireland to California? An
I,
easy one?
to be honest, I actually really enjoyed it. I wonder why, but like the weather obviously is awesome. People, Americans in general, they're like so friendly, so they're so welcoming, and all universities will always have like welcome weeks, and they'll really help you try and transition. And thankfully, because a number of the team is foreign and they're international, everyone's kind of very similar. So the culture is awesome here, and it's very similar to back home.
Is there many other Northern Irish people over there?
There was a girl in my when the year I joined. There was actually a girl that came through. She was on scholarship for rowing. She was from Belfast, so that was pretty funny. But and now this year there's a guy from Limerick down south in the rugby team. So there's not loads of Irish people, but it's pretty consistent, and it's pretty funny as well. Americans will always say like, "Oh my God, I'm Irish too," you know. So uh, it goes pretty far, especially the accent. So.
Yeah, I'm sure you do all right over there. And in terms of what you're doing now, so you've obviously been playing, but you're coaching now, am I right?
Yeah, I am. So thankfully, I had a really successful year. I really enjoyed playing rugby over here. Got a taste for some higher level rugby as well with the Guiltinis. And then I went home because obviously I was only on a short term, 1 year student visa. Went home, got my coaching badges, got my certificates, coached a bit with Ulster. So like Ulster under 16s, under 17s during the season. And then I actually connected with the UCLA alumni as well. When I came back out, he offered me a full time job and now I coach as well on the side. So thankfully doing a bit of both.
So sorry, let me just work that out. So you went over there and did the university stuff. What did you study? Sorry?
I study psychology.
So you were studying psychology, but obviously playing rugby there at the same time, and wanted to get into coaching then.
Yeah. So what really got me into it was actually, so we trained with the Giltinis. Well, I trained like most weeks there near the end of the season. So I really got the taste for the higher performance level of rugby. I thought it was class, and I probably don't have the physique or like the consistency at the gym to play rugby at that level. So, but I definitely thought I could give it a go on maybe the coaching side and use my brain. So I went home, got my coaching badges, and then Ulster, like underage systems, under 16s, under 17s. I coached there like throughout the season. Just like throughout the school year, we would do top up sessions every week. And then in the summertime, there's obviously the full time summer program. So I was involved with that one. And then I flew back out. And now I coach in the evening time with UCLA, but I also have a 9 to 5 job. The 9 to 5 job was actually secured through the UCLA Rugby Alumni Network. So that's another brilliant aspect of going to university in America, is the ability to kind of connect with the alumni, and that they're very always looking to help each other out.
Yeah, before we talk about that a little bit more, you talk about the Giltinis. So that obviously gave you an opportunity. Just talk to us. So the LA Giltinis, I know they're not there anymore, but just talk to us about them. They're one of the MLR teams, right, that plays over there. That were
Yes.
over
Yeah,
there.
so the MLR, that's the Major League Rugby, so that's the professional rugby league in America. And when I was here, there was a team called LA Giltinis, and they were highly successful. They actually won the championship, and a number of the players in the team, for example, is Adam Ashley Cooper, Matt Gitu, Dave Dennis, Billy Meeks. So some literally like some of the world's greatest players. They were all living there in LA. So at the time, we were playing for UCLA. But there was a couple of training sessions where they needed a few extra players, and our coaching staff was very aligned. So we were sent over a couple of times, and there was a point in the season where they were actually down a second row in their squad. So I just trained with them. I got to the stage I trained with them every week, just to kind of help out with their numbers. So that was an awesome experience, and I still have a lot of really strong friends there with the Giltinis, and then they're now just like they're playing throughout America. But the good thing is they're actually bringing a new MLR team back to LA. So that's just recently been announced. So that's been set up for kickoff here in January. And there was actually 2 of our players from last year who got drafted, and they got drafted to the LA team. So thankfully we're going to see a return of those guys and a few more guys from the Giltinis. And thankfully with this next year, I think the academy set up with LA, we're going to get a few more UCLA guys and foster another strong relationship there.
Yeah, which is brilliant. So I suppose that's another incentive for athletes to come from the UK and get over there, because there's that opportunity to obviously link into the professional game. And the MLR, from what I know, and a lot of the players, you spoke about some of the names in that LA Giltinis team, but some of the blokes I played with, Adam Ash, DTH Van der Merwe, who I played at with Glasgow Warriors, I know that they were involved out there, and they were talking about the link between the clubs. I've also got some friends that play at Old Glory in Washington, and there's always that connection between the MLR and the universities, right? How important is that? And is that a big incentive for some people to come over and they get involved with the universities, but they've also got a bit of a feed into some professional clubs out there?
Yeah, that's huge. That's absolutely huge. So, for example, there's one player that we have in our current UCLA team. He was ex like Wasps Academy. He came through their underage systems, but didn't make it quite at that top professional level. And now he's over in UCLA. And realistically, the long-term goal there is to have your 4-year college degree, but at the end, you do have a real possibility of going and getting drafted into the MLR. So, like I said, last year we had 2 Australian players who came over and they got drafted to the MLR. They played 1 year in college, then got drafted. There was also, like, from other colleges, there was also a number of foreign-born players who were drafted into the MLR, because, like we kind of discussed earlier, the massive advantage that foreign-born players have is that rugby IQ. So when you're making that transition from college, the high-level college, into the top men's professional game, if you have that rugby IQ, it's a really big help there. So the transition from college to MLR is definitely possible, and it's done every year.
And again, obviously a positive is some of those players that are playing at the professional level. And I know Adam Ash, who played for Scotland, we won't disclose his nickname on here, which we were discussing earlier, but he comes over and does a bit of coaching at UCLA as well.
Yeah, super. So when he was, in my year, he was actually my forwards coach. So that year we had Adam Ash in the building, We have Christian Rodriguez, who's now the head coach of another college program. He was our like assistant backs coach. We also had Billy Meeks come out for a number of sessions. We also had like a number of the Giltini boys that would come and give a hand. Alex Corbisiero, who obviously,
some of these for people that don't know, there's an Australian international, a Scottish international, England and British and Irish Lion international.
Yeah, starting British and Irish Iron Prop. So he would actually come in and do scrum sessions as well with us. So thankfully the link between MLR is huge. And like even right now, for example, so our head coach, Harry Bennett, he played 10 for New York for a number of years in the MLR. Our assistant back coach, Danny Thomas, he played 9 for, again, Old Glory in DC for a number of years in the MLR. So the connection between the professional game and the high-end college game is huge.
Yeah, and I can testify for that. I know a lot of the players, especially in the professional era that I've played in, are going out there to coach or even to play still. So it's definitely something that's growing, and obviously with the World Cup coming up in 2031, I know there's a big emphasis on it. Just a couple more questions here. By the way, anyone listening or watching, you can chuck some questions in the comments, but I think there's a question section there. So chuck them in there and we'll try and get them answered as we go along. For you though, Rory, what was your standout moment as a player for UCLA?
Well, to be honest, I was lucky to have a number of really standout moments. So I don't know if necessarily I could pick just one. Even the basic stuff of traveling the country with like when you're training like 3-4 times a week, you do come really good mates with these guys, and it's an awesome opportunity. So the travel was actually awesome, and going to some really cool campuses. I think being involved with the Giltinis again was an awesome opportunity. But then a third one, which was it's a bit different, and you maybe don't see at home as much, was this opportunity to be in the California Grizzlies. So who the California Grizzlies were, it was essentially just a California like all-star team, and they form every year. So that's picked from players from across the universities across California, and we actually went on a tour to Argentina. So that was awesome, and I was lucky enough to be the captain of that tour as well. So that was an awesome opportunity.
And I know how big rugby is over there. It's obviously a football country, but we've got some incredible Argentinians at Glasgow Warriors. What an experience that must have been to get over there. How long were you over there? Talk a little bit about that tour.
Yeah, so that tour was awesome. We were there for about 2 weeks, about 14 days. We played like 3 games, and again, because we had beforehand, obviously we're like a invitational select side, so we had actually like a 3-4 day training camp in San Francisco before that. So that was awesome, and really getting the chance to make a number of friends across the college. The landscape was awesome. So out of that team, a number of them have now gone on to play professional rugby, both in America, and then one of the players, Carl Keane, actually now plays professional rugby in Japan as well. So he played 1 year in Seattle in the MLR, and now he got recruited to go and play in Japan. So the quality of that team was sensational.
Oh, awesome! Hey, and Japan's not a bad place to go, especially for the yen, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah, the Dosh is pretty good there, and I think they have an eye of recruiting these foreign players. If they keep them for 5 years, they can play for Japan. So that's potentially, you may see Carl Keane play the white ginger kid play for Japan in 5 years.
Well, you see him. And you mentioned traveling then. So I know that a lot of people that will be tuning into this will be wondering, do you travel all over the US? It's not just, is it just that side of the US that you travel? Do you travel a little bit further? Is it planes? Is it buses? What is it when you're getting around?
Yeah, so how it works, so obviously America is a massive, vast country. So rugby in general it's very focused maybe on the coast traditionally. So right now, obviously, I'm on the West Coast, I'm in California. So how they kind of split up their divisions is through conferences. So for example, UCLA play in the Pac-12 conference, which is essentially just a fancy name for like there's California as in Berkeley. So there's a team in San Francisco, there's a team in LA, there's teams in there's a team in Utah, there's a team in Arizona. So all over that kind of West Coast, we play teams there. Stanford as well, up in North Cal. But also we play teams outside of our division. So we play other teams in California. So you play Cal Poly, for example. Recently, we've played against a couple of times against teams from San Diego. We played against USC, which is our crosstown rivals. And we also play out of conference games out of state. So we have a game against CWU, Central Washington University, up at the very, very top northwest of the country. So we will fly to that game. We also fly to the game in Utah, but we also generally, if it's anywhere within like a 6-hour bus ride, we'll usually take a bus. And don't get me wrong, that sounds horrible, 6 hours in a bus, but honestly, it's actually not the worst thing in the world. If you told me I was going to say that beforehand, I wouldn't believe you. But recently we had a game in Santa Clara. I couldn't. They bussed the day before, sleep over in a hotel, bus home the next day. I wasn't able to do that. I had to drive up and down in the same day, so that was a tough day. But it's honestly the freeways in America, they're so straight. It's pretty handy.
Yeah, no, we all know how good the old bus trips are with rugby teams, and that's probably best part of it. So it's definitely a little bit more exotic than going to the universities in the UK then, because it's 4 hours up the road. Do you stay over? So you stay over and get involved in? You mentioned going and seeing the other campuses after matches and stuff when you play against other universities. What takes place? Is it similar to what happens in the UK? You sit and you have a few beers with the opposition team.
Yeah, so you can do that, but it kind of depends. So it does depend basically on your travel schedule. Because if you have a long journey home, sometimes you're not able to do it. What will always be the case is that you'll get food and you'll catch up with the team, but it might not be a 2 day trip where you'll have like a second night out. But there is cases where that can happen.
And I know, speaking to Adam Ash, he said that by far you've got probably the best campus going. UCLA. Talk to us about the campus. Talk to us about campus life, and of course, frat parties. That's all I want to know. Like, is that really a thing? Is it like it is on the films?
Yeah, so yeah, obviously there's loads of frats around UCLA, and actually there's always like a lot of the players in the rugby teams will also be in frats, so there's chances to go to those as well. But the great thing about UCLA, to be honest, is that there's so much outside of rugby. So just in terms of the education, UCLA is the #1 public university in America. It's the most applied to university in America, and I think there's a reason for that. Obviously, the weather's unbelievable, the education's great, but that social life outside of the university is brilliant. And in terms of the area that UCLA is in, it's beside the three Bs. So it's beside Bel Air, Brentwood, and Beverly Hills. So it's a really fancy, really nice, safe area in Los Angeles. It's right beside Santa Monica as well, so it's really in a prime location there. But in terms of the buildings, UCLA is UCLA has actually appeared as Harvard in more movies than Harvard University itself. So
Is that right?
it's right beside like all the Hollywood, and it's a really fancy campus. It's really nice. But in terms, another thing as well, which really sets UCLA apart is the sport. So obviously we're the rugby team, but there's a number of sports there. So you've got the traditional American sports, American football, American basketball. Recently, American football team. My brother was actually over visiting this week. We had a massive game against USC, which we beat them, which was awesome. Basketball, we're always one of the top teams in basketball, and the games are always generally sold out there. But also in like swimming and golf and tennis. Recently, so as I said, my brother was over, and there's a couple of girls just on the sideline chatting to our players, and I was like, "See those two girls there? They're Olympians." So they're just walking around campus. There's friends from gymnastics. My parents were over like when I was here. They were just walking through the campus, and there's like the tennis courts. They just sat at the tennis courts, and they were just watching. There's a bit of a crowd watching, and they're like, these guys are like really good. They're like, so they asked someone like, oh, who's playing? And it was Medvedev, the world #2 of tennis, was just training at UCLA. Later that night, we're walking through the campus, and there's a hotel right beside the campus. We were just walking through after dinner, and there's all these people going into the basketball stadium, and they were like, "Oh, like what's going on there?" And they're like, "Oh, is there a basketball game on?" I was like, "No, it's just the gymnastics are just holding an open practice." And they're like, "Why is there 1,000 people going to an open practice for gymnastics?" And they're like, "Yeah, there's 3 Olympians in that team."
That is incredible, isn't it? And so the American football team then, their stadium, what's the capacity of that? Same with the basketball. And do you get to go along to those college matches and watch them when they play?
Yeah, we do. So we actually play in the Rose Bowl. So that's in Pasadena. It's maybe about 45 minutes outside UCLA because we're in prime real estate right here. So it's pretty hard to get like a massive stadium. I don't actually know the exact number for the Rose Bowl, but I think it's probably north of 80,000 people, which is absolutely huge. There's actually a funny stat: the 15 biggest sports stadiums in the world are all college football. So college football here is an absolute religion. Basketball, those stadiums are obviously a lot smaller, but we sell that stadium out quite a lot, and we're regularly ranked as one of the top schools in the nation. So thankfully, the sport in UCLA is really awesome.
Do you ever cross over? Do you like ever try and give the American football boys a run for their money? Any of the boys try their hand at it, basketball, anything like that? Or more importantly, are they ever worried about coming over, taking their pads off and trying a bit of rugby?
So this is actually a funny. This is pretty topical. So when I was playing, we were at this party in San Diego, and there's this guy there who's absolutely massive. Like he's like I'm tall, I'm 6'6". This guy was like 6'9", like over 300 pounds. He was absolutely huge. And I was like, "Do you want to play rugby?" Turns out he played like he was like an O lineman for the UCLA football team, but he had just graduated. So he was able to the season had just finished, so he was actually able to come over and play rugby for the next couple of months, and then he actually signed a professional contract at the end. So that's really lit the way, and a lot of the football players then realize saying, if we can't play professional NFL, then maybe we'll give rugby a try for a couple of months. So we then had a couple guys. So there's a number of football players who come from like Tongan or Samoan heritage. So the couple of those guys actually came out then to a couple of practices. So Neo Maffey, he came out to a couple of practices. He's been since drafted by the Patriots, so he plays for the Patriots, and I've trained with Neo a number of times. And then we've got Latu, who is he's currently in the UCLA team. He's our best player in the UCLA team, and he is soon to be a first round pick in the NFL draft. So yeah, it was absolutely crazy, and we were actually playing touch rugby, and he was running so hard. I was like, I'm potentially afraid to touch him here. Never mind tackle him.
That's awesome, isn't it? And I suppose that is the big thing that lures people out to the US. It's not just everything about the campus, the facilities, which we'll get onto, I'm sure, at some point. There's some questions coming through here, but also the other athletes that you rub shoulders with. These guys go on to be probably the biggest names in sport across the world, not just in America, but across the world. I could sit here and chat to you about this sort of stuff all day, but I know I'm aware we've got a few more questions we've got to get through. So one of the things here is, what does a typical week look like for a UCLA player, and how does the competition look for 15s and 7s? How can you explain that one to us?
Yeah, cool. So we actually, for the last number of years, we've had like a strong sevens program, but at UCLA, like USA Rugby recently, as of this year, I've kind of made a decision to kind of move away from sevens as a focus and focus more on like traditional 15s, which as a forward, I'm fully on board with, thankfully. So
they might not be saying that after DuPont's talking about
I know.
to the
I
Olympics.
saw that Michael Hooper as well, but no. To be fair, there's some unbelievable athletes in the seven circuit, and like for example, this is just it's funny how many stories I have of this. But one of our players in my year is a guy called Lucas the Camp. He now plays sevens for USA. He's been on the tour for like 2-3 years. He's realistically going to be in the Olympics this next year, and he was my teammate. So he's actually one of the strong players for the USA as well. So that was unbelievable. So we do have a strong sevens heritage, but we have recently, as of this year, the USA is kind of moving towards 15s. So what we're looking at now, we're in preseason right now. We played 5 games. We're 5-0, which is great. We've a massive
saying, by the way, 5-0, 5-0.
Yeah, yeah. So we're undefeated world champs. But anyway, we're playing Oxford University next month, which will be an absolutely huge game. They're coming over on tour, and they're playing a couple of professional academy teams as well. So that's huge for us. But what we're looking like now in preseason in terms of a week's schedule, you're looking to hit the gym like a pre like start of your day pre-education gym. You're looking to hit that maybe 3 times a week. You also have like an optional personal gym as well, an extra day, maybe 2, whatever your personal preference is. In terms of pitch training sessions, we do Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, with a team run on Fridays. Also moving into the season, you could potentially do a video analysis session on a Wednesday. So to clarify, it is like it's almost professional in terms of the setup, in terms of the commitment. Anyone that comes here, like I was saying with the American players, they are very committed, and if you want a high level, you can get that here. It is definitely a serious organization.
Yeah, it sounds like, training as much as I used to train when I was a professional player. So that's exactly what you want as an athlete. And then obviously you've got to fit your education stuff in and amongst that. I know that some things that the students probably don't like to hear, but the mums and dads and the parents of these kids will like to hear. They've got to fit that stuff in as well around that, right?
Yeah, so to be honest, like UCLA, like I said, like we're the #1 public university in America. Education comes first, and how it's described in America, you're a student athlete. So the student always comes first. So how that kind of works, so we're very conscious of the classes. Classes in UCLA, they can range from 8 a.m. in the morning to 6 p.m. You get to choose your own classes, and the schedule, normally every class will be ran 3 to 4 times a week with different schedules. So our players, we really encourage our players to be very conscious of our training schedules. We get that set out in advance. We also get our players to send us their timetable for their school subjects so that we can kind of work around them. Obviously, we have a lot of sessions, so potentially you're not able to make every session. We're very understanding of that. We're very accommodating. And then furthermore, when it comes to, like, if you have a trip at the weekend, if we're playing a game on a Saturday and we need to travel on a Friday, UCLA is very accommodating to us as well. So if you have a test or you have a homework due, you can actually get extensions on that as well. The university, generally, when you come to university, tutors and lecturers are very, very flexible. If you kind of get your work done and you're doing it at a good standard, so they definitely work with us on that one as well.
So it is like in the movies then. Don't make your grades, you can't train.
Yeah, honestly, it is a massive thing, and especially if you're getting to a point, if you're on like scholarships or in varsity teams, you really need to be hitting a certain grade before you. Otherwise, they can pull your scholarship in some circumstances.
What are you looking for in a student, as in an athlete, when you're recruiting for the UCLA?
So, like I said again, like honestly, like the grades come first. You could be the best rugby player in the world, but if you don't have the grades, UCLA will not let you in. So the first thing is always the grades. So you need to have a strong grade profile, and just in terms of actually coming here, in terms of being a player, honestly, we're very open. We have a number of players across the spectrum, from Americans who have maybe never played before to maybe more experienced players. We have a number of players who are in national under 20 camps. We have a number of foreign-born players. So honestly, we can kind of bring anyone from any level. We're very open to that one, but generally you have to be hardworking. You have to be committed. We're training a lot. We're playing a lot. So you have to really want it, have a strong desire, and just be a team player. Be one of the guys. Essentially what we're looking for in terms of the physical or the technical. We can always work on that, but it's your personality is the main thing for us here, honestly. And obviously, as I said, grades is a massive step and first point there.
And now I know that we've been pushing UCLA and talking a lot about that, and it might pain you to do this, but let's talk about some other colleges out there. What are the next? What are the ones that are really pushing the boundaries in terms of college rugby at the moment? And for people that are sat in here that maybe UCLA isn't an option or they want to look at something else, what other colleges are really pushing their rugby programs, and you think over the next 4 years are going to grow?
Yeah, no worries. Always happy to kind of talk about other colleges as well. And thankfully, I see the benefit of coming here, so I'm happy to kind of share that wisdom as well. So what I would say is that the college rugby platform is very diverse. There's a number of really strong programs. So right now, we're usually is ranked like anywhere from 12 maybe to 15 by the end of the season. Obviously, we're looking to still increase that, and we have been the last number of years. So that's been really positive. What you're looking at traditionally, the big four in USA rugby and college rugby is Cal, which is one of our main rivals. Actually, they're up in like Berkeley and San Francisco. You also have St. Mary's, which is also in San Francisco. You have Lindenwood, which is that's more of the middle country, I believe, Illinois, near Chicago, but I need to confirm that one. And then the last one is Life University, which is also in that northwest. What I would say, so Cal again is very similar to us, to be honest. They have a number of foreign players, but the grades are very high. St. Mary's, they have a number of American players. I'm not sure if what they do with regards to scholarships. Life is a chiropractic college. I believe they also have a number of foreign players. I think actually Jimmy Beresford, and there's a from First Point. He actually went to Life. He was a foreign player, and then Lindenwood, there in Illinois, they're always a traditional team, and honestly, the vast majority of Lindenwood's team is a foreign players. So they have players from England, from Scotland, from South Africa, France. They have really players from all over America. So they are massive for actually scholarships and kind of getting people over, and that's a great program there. And I actually have one connection there as well, so that's really awesome. In terms of teams that are maybe outside of that, the last three national championships have been won by three separate teams. So that the last previous two was actually won by Navy, so the Navy Academy, and also by Army. So they're obviously they're like honestly they're more restricted to Americans, and you have to join the Navy or the Army afterwards. But they're great programs. And then also the one before that I think was won by either Life or St. Mary's, one of those traditional top fours. But yeah, the the landscape for college rugby, it's very varied, and there will be a spot for everyone here. How it kind of whenever I'm talking as well right now, apologies, I'm talking about D1A. So whenever USA Rugby it filed for bankruptcy a number of years ago, and from there the college college system was kind of split in two. So D1A is a lot of the colleges I've just talked about there now, but there's also a number of other colleges that are in a platform called NCR, National Collegiate Rugby. So some of the strongest ones there. I'm not as up to date on NCR because it's not we're not involved, but I know St Bonaventure, they're always up near the top of that board, and I think they have a number of foreign players. There was actually last year there's a guy Keelan Coyle who came from Derry, about 30 minutes from where I live, and he played 10 there. He declared for the draft as well. So they have a number of foreign-born players. There's Notre Dame College has a number of foreign players as well. So there definitely is a massive landscape there. So I definitely would touch base with you guys at first point if anyone's interested. You boys honestly could probably tell better than I can with regards to the landscape. But what I would say is that there's not one team that kind of dominates for the last 10 years. It is pretty varied, and there will be opportunities for people across the grade profile.
Yeah, and that's what you want to hear. So, and for anyone that's listening to this right now or watching this later on, obviously head over to firstpointusa.com and there's all the information on there. We've done a few videos actually with Jamie Beresford recently. That's up at the moment on our YouTube channel, talking about his life as a student athlete, and he was at, as what you mentioned, Life University. So he's got a different view on things in terms of where he went. I'm just flicking through some of the questions here you've actually answered already, because you've given us pretty much all the information we need. There's one here. Just give us a quick overview on the women's rugby, because I know that for every dollar spent on men's rugby in colleges at the moment, they're spending $1 on women's, which is amazing, and it's growing really, really fast, probably faster than men's rugby right now. So just give us a brief bit on the women's rugby over there at the moment and how big that is.
Yeah, super. So UCLA, they have a women's program as well, and there's actually a number of universities across America which have really strong women's programs. And you're correct in what you're saying. So in America, there's a thing called Title IX. So if any time you're trying to bring a sport through varsity, so if you want to make the rugby team a varsity team, you also have to match those numbers. So if there's 40 players in the rugby varsity team, you need to find 40 players from another sport. So a lot of times that other sport can be women's rugby because it's very similar numbers there. So UCLA has a women's rugby team. There's also a really strong women's program in Life University. There's really strong women's programs in Harvard University. So again, it's throughout the landscape of America, and there is some really strong teams out there, and there is a lot of money going into it. I think right now in UCLA women's rugby, there's maybe 2 or 3 coaches. I think the team, they maybe have 40 to 50 players. So like it's a really strong setup there.
And it's huge over here because obviously rugby is growing so fast at the moment, especially in the women's side of things in the UK. It's not a huge thing out in the US. So they're looking for participants or anyone they can get in the UK at the moment to try and get over to the US to offer, a wider aspect. So that's brilliant. Huge opportunities there. I'm just flicking through some of the other stuff here. Someone's put, how important is size American universities to compete? Do you need to think about bulking up in preparation to go? Is fitness a big thing? Rugby IQ more important than size? Again, I think you've sort of answered that. What would you say? Is it more about, like you said, your rugby IQ than in terms of size? Because I think people worry, like you said, you get some absolute specimens, some huge athletes over there in the US. But actually, it's just people with rugby IQ they're looking for, right?
Yeah, so honestly, like I said, so I'm not a big gym guy. Unfortunately, I barely go to the gym. My knees popped out like 6
Mine
times.
never was either, mate. Don't worry.
So I think honestly, if you have a strong understanding for the game, which you normally will if you've came from international, then you can definitely work around it. What I would say is that rugby's a contact sport, so being in good shape is never a bad thing. But you don't have to come over. You don't have to be 6'8". You don't have to be doing massive weights in the gym. I'm not that guy. But what I would say is that if you are in better physical condition, like it's always going to help. So I would say that.
I've got a question here. What GCSEs would you recommend for playing rugby? I don't think it's so much about the GCSEs you take. I think it's just about the grades you get and trying to make sure you get them high enough. Looking anything above a C, am I right?
So it honestly, from my understanding, and again, I think you guys have academic advisors in First Point who will know the best answer to these questions. But from my understanding is that generally the GCSEs doesn't really matter. in terms of the subjects, what I would say is that you need a strong grade profile. And but I wouldn't say it's necessary potentially for GCSEs. A levels, if you're looking to come in as a first year, A levels is really key there. Or if you're looking to have a transfer, you need to have a really strong GPA when you're in your current university. But yeah, so A levels is really what you need to be hitting there. And obviously, again, depends what university you're going to. I would definitely connect for First Point in terms of academic advisors. They can advise what the landscape's looking there. But again, better grades will not harm. Better grades will only help in terms of getting to America.
One of the ones here, my son's with First Point USA as a committed stage. He has got good SAT scores and GCSEs. There's lots of footage on his profile. The best thing to get him spotted by coaches so he gets some good college offers. Do you reckon that's an important thing to do?
Pardon me, I'm just trying to find the question.
He's just down the bottom, Keely Rice. He's basically asking, do you think
here we go.
to try and get as much footage on his profile as possible? Is that something you look at? Will that help his college offers?
I think at the end of the day, footage always helps. If you can kind of see the player and see how they act and interact, that can be really huge. What I would say, it's not like what isn't necessarily like you need to have hours and hours. But I think realistically, if you're a coach and you're picking between two players and one player has no film and another player has abundance of film, so you really understand what you're getting, that can be really strong. We also have some direct conversations with the people at First Point. So if you aren't able to have any film, for example, there is workarounds for that. But a lot of times we correlate directly with the rugby correspondents at First Point, Martin Lavelle, for example, and really have a close relationship there.
Okay. There's one here. What GPA score is what UCLA is looking for? GPA?
Yeah, so GPA, that's the American version of grades. So in terms of the A levels, they have a way of kind of bringing it over. I can't say an official grade. It really changes every year. Why would like I said, UCLA is number one applied to university in America, so it is a very high GPA score. I think generally you would be aiming to hit like a high, up to like a 3.8 and above would be a really strong score. SATs aren't necessary for UCLA. ACTs aren't necessary for UCLA. But again, if you have a really strong score there, that won't hurt. That will help. But they're not necessary. But GPA for UCLA, you're really looking 3.8 and above is a strong score that will really get the ball moving there.
Before we go on to a few more, there's one more thing at the bottom of these stuff that we got written down. For players that haven't made up their mind in terms of going over to the US, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, super. So what I would say, so whenever I was kind of making that decision, first thing I did, I contacted the UCLA coach, for example. I contacted them directly and said, look, I'm interested. At the time, it was actually an Irish guy, Dave Clancy. He now is a professional coach with the Chicago Hounds. He was also involved with the Giltinis. And I contacted him, had a really great informative Zoom call with him. Sometimes you can also have an opportunity maybe to chat with players and see their perspective. I think it's definitely worth a conversation at the end of the day. And sometimes we have players, if they have the funds, they come over on prospective visits. So recently we had a player visit from Australia, and he's came to a number of different universities, kind of going on a bit of a tour. We've also had players come over who knew they wanted to go to UCLA, knew they wanted to apply, but they just came over just to get a feel for the lay for the land, shall we say, meet a few of the guys, meet the head coach, the parents meet the head coach. Anytime you're kind of picking a university, it's a big decision, so I wouldn't rush into it. I would definitely get lots of information, get your parents on board, see what their thoughts are, and meet the coaches, see where you're going to play, see where you're going to train, get a really good feel for the area, because it's a big call, especially if you're moving halfway across the world, especially if there's a lot of funds involved. So definitely get lots of information, don't rush into it, and just good luck. I really wish as many people come over here as they can. It's an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, well, I know that, myself speaking to you today, I'm desperate to get out there and see as much as I can. Just for anyone that's asking questions in here, we will provide some more detailed answers in the FAQ. We'll do a little bit of a follow-up, and also, as I mentioned already earlier, head over to the website. There's loads of information on there, which you can go and grab some stuff. One more question that was thrown in, I saw somewhere. What do you predominantly play on? Grass pitches, on fake pitches, 3Gs, whatever you call them, 4Gs now? Lose track.
Yeah, so unfortunately, America loves turf fields because it's just like it's easier for them to maintain. It's a bit cheaper. So thankfully, We play on a number of grass pitches. So our main pitch is a grass pitch. It's unbelievable. It's called Wallace Annenberg. You can look it up. It's where the soccer team plays. So in our preseason, that's where the soccer team's playing. So we actually play on a turf pitch, but we also train then on grass as well. So it's pretty mixed for us. Some other colleges they play exclusively on grass. Some other colleges play exclusively on turf. But I would say it's a mixture. At most, it's probably 75% grass, 25% turf against the teams we play against. But yeah, there is a number of turf fields.
Just getting some more questions over there. Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry, and this last one for players. So again, some more advice for players who are already committed to the US and preparing for student athlete life in 2024. Just a last question on that. What advice would you give them for those that have already committed to the US?
So like I said before, so just like there is a strong commitment there in terms of like how much you're training. So I would get in good routines. I would just upskill in terms of your knowledge of the game, in terms of your physicality in the gym, etc., and just get really ready. It's a big move, and it'll be a lot of fun. So just go into 100%, and you'll have a great time. But in terms of the guys that are already committed, just know that you are going into like a strong setup, a professional setup almost. So just be really ready to go for it. And when you get there, really enjoy yourself. And there always will be a transition period. You might not necessarily walk in the first week and love it and say, this is what I want to do for 4 years. But eventually you may feel homesick, whatever. But eventually you'll get to a point where you're like, this is an awesome opportunity. So just really go for it is what I would say.
Yeah, and I suppose listening to you talk and how professional things are over there might be a bit of a shock to the system for some people when they get out there and they know they've got 3 pitch sessions a week and 3 or 4 gym sessions. So there's also some stuff that First Point do with SW7, which is a Sam Warburton Academy, where you can get gym programs, fitness programs, all that sort of stuff when you sign up. So again, have a look on the website and go and see what else is out there. But listen, we really appreciate your time, Rory. I don't want to keep you any longer from the beautiful sunshine. I'm very, very jealous. And I know that if I was a student athlete looking to go over to the US, listening to you talk about it would have made me very excited, and certainly something I would want to do. And if I had the time again, I think I would have been over there in the UCLA with you. I think the frat parties is what lures me over most. Just everything around it, and you see how professional everything is in terms of facilities. The education for parents is the big thing, and they want to know that not everyone makes it all the way through. And if there's another fallback, then at least you've got a good education behind you. So I'm sure that the parents listening to this are reassured. I'm sure that the kids listening to this are desperate to get over there now. And we just want to say a massive thank you to you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. And this will be recorded, and I think it will go out. And I've got a little wrap-up bit. So we'll just, a big thank you. There's contact details on the website, but if you want to get in touch with the First Point Rugby contact, it's Jamie Beresford. So if you get jamie.beresford@firstpointusa.com, fire him an email. He's there for any of you guys that are watching to ask any more questions. As I said, we will do a follow-up FAQ section. But Roy, you've been absolutely fantastic, mate. I'm making sure that my next appointment with First Point USA is to get out to UCLA and come and see what's going on over there. So maybe I'll come and do a little bit of coaching with you. You can teach me.
That'll be awesome. Sounds like a plan.
Well, listen, I hope everyone else has enjoyed this. Thank you very much. And Rory, go and enjoy the sunshine. And best of luck with the season with UCLA. I hope you guys go well. I'm sure you will. And thank you again for your time.
No worries. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining.
All the best. Thanks very much, everyone. Cheers, Rory. Take care, mate.
See ya. Bye.